This one's for the young professionals who keep hustling, no matter what life throws at them. The ones who keep the midnight oil burning until the early morning. The ones who understand that ambition alone isn't enough, but that grit is what separates the icons from the one-hit wonders. This one's for you, who graduated first in your family and then made sure you weren't the last. It's for the business owners who started with nothing but belief and that 4 a.m. alarm. This one's from the bank that doesn't just take your money, but takes your money seriously. The bank that gets you, all of you. The this by day and that by night you. So hustle on with us in your corner. Go ahead and dream big. Play in the big leagues and be a big fish in an even bigger pond. This one's for you, the one who understands that a good money hack goes a long way. This one's for Generation Hustle. Hashtag Nedbank Young Pro.
Well, hello everyone, and a very good afternoon as we welcome you to our second roundtable for the Nedbank Generation Hustle Money Hacks that we're going to engage in today. It's our second roundtable, and we're quite excited to be here broadcasting live from our Nedbank headquarters here in Sandton, Johannesburg, where we're going to shed some light as to how young professionals like you and I and my guests who've joined us here in studio will be able to expand on the growth opportunities and, of course, opportunities for us to tackle our goals, both professionally as well as personally, within the year ahead. Well, we're excited to have you and, of course, going to provide you with a lot more insight over the next 1 hour. But as we get the conversation on the road, I do want to strongly encourage you to participate with us on social media. Now, the official hashtag to use is hashtag NedbankYoungPro. And if it's your first time joining us, well, you're not too late to the party, but where have you been? Because over the last few sessions, this is where we've had the opportunity to make sure that young professionals like you and I, individuals under the age of 30 who have a qualification for more than 4 years and are looking to expand on their professional growth objectives, have an opportunity to sit down, engage, share some thoughts and enlightenment, and even some of the challenges that we often tend to experience when it comes to smashing and reaching our goals. Whether it's financially, making sure that you're tapping into the right opportunities, personally in terms of seeking the right guidance and support, and of course making sure that you continue to interact and engage with some of your peers and leaders in the industry to seek some suggestions, solutions, and advice. Well, that's what we're here for. We don't promise to solve all your problems, but we'll be able to guide you through a few personal stories that each of us have had, and most importantly, how that can assist you in reaching your goals. Now, we're cognizant of the fact that in a few weeks, many of us will be shouting Happy New Year from various locations around the world, and that will mean that we might be faced with pressures as to what goals we want to reach in the year 2022. Are there answers? Are there ways of managing some of these challenges? And after what we've witnessed in the last 2 years with the pandemic, how do we make sure that we're able to navigate any challenges that come about during the next year? Well, I'm quite excited for us to get this conversation on the road, and of course we want to remind you to participate by sharing some of your questions, which we will answer with our guests who are with me here in studio today. So don't hold back, share your excitement. Even though this is virtual, we still want to interact with you as we ordinarily would in person. Allow me to introduce my guests who are joining us today, and some familiar faces to many of you, whether you've seen them on your TV screen, on the gram, or maybe on previous conversations that we've had here for Nedbank Money Hacks. We are excited to welcome my first guest who joins me on my right-hand side, Aurelia Hlobisile, who joins us, Ngumalo. She's not only an admitted advocate of the High Court of South Africa with distinctions of being a legal practitioner. She's also an entrepreneur, a speaker, as well as an influencer with many, many followers to her name as she continues to expand on her passion projects, incorporating law, and of course, sharing this kind of information with the broader public. Aurelia, great to have you and see you again today.
Thank you. I always say it's such a pleasure to be introduced by you, so thank you for that lovely introduction.
Excited to have you. And of course, the rose who is in between other roses today is Anton.
Very much a thorn.
Almost a thorn. Far from it. We wouldn't describe you as that.
Yeah.
Is Anton David Jefter, who is a South African Cape Town-born actor, model, and voiceover artist. Now, he's not just someone who focuses on the arts, but also a finance graduate who's been based both between South Africa and Los Angeles. Anton has certainly become a household name. Many of you might know him from his most recent role that he served on the Mnet telenovela Legacy, where he plays SJ. So I'm sure a lot of people might see you as a familiar face there, but Anton has also participated in several other movies internationally: Death Race Inferno, Homeland, and Dominion, and a few others that are registered to his name. So we're quite excited to speak to you today.
Thank you. Thank you for that intro.
Fantastic.
It's lovely, yeah.
Well, looking forward to hearing more from you. And of course, one of the other roses on the panel is Phumelele Zwane, a qualified CASA, chartered accountant with over 6 years of investment banking experience with a key focus on structured trade finance. She does certainly boast not only increased knowledge regarding the global investment dynamic, particularly catering to clients within the agricultural, energy, and metal sector, but if you also happen to follow her on social media, you would know that she's someone who does prioritize her health, well-being, and fitness. But I think if you look at our panel across the board, that's a common theme. But on that note, though, great to have you all with us. And Pume, also looking forward to your insight that you'll be able to share with us today. And I think it's quite important that we do set the tone and the context regarding not only the professional accolades that many of you have, but to make things personal. And maybe, Aurelia, I'd like to start off with you. Everyone's counting down towards the end of the year. We're excited to actually put together our plans for 2022. But let's be real. Year-end fatigue, is it catching up with you?
It's caught up. It's there. I'm in it.
Yeah.
I'm in the burnout. I need a holiday already, but we're still soldier on. And I think I've had the great opportunity in that my birthday is towards the end of the year, right? It's already passed, but my new year always starts on my birthday. So already I'm fighting the year-end fatigue, also realizing actually this is the start of your new year, you know, before the actual one, the Happy New Year. And yeah, burnout is real, and I need some self-care.
You need some self-care. As you say that, you look at Pume, so everyone's clearly looking at you to be the guide. Hot water and lemon in your mug, I'm assuming. How many squats did you do today is how I started off your introduction. But maybe you can tell us how you're managing with the year-end fatigue, but at the same time still prioritizing your last quarter goals for the year.
Yeah, I actually share Aurelia's sentiments. Year-end fatigue it's real, it's a thing. But I think what keeps me going is the fact of knowing that it's almost the end of the year. So it's just the final stretch. So every morning you wake up, you just want to be as productive as possible.
Yeah.
So what I normally always do is that I never give up on things that I know that are essential to keep me going through the day, which is fitness and exercising.
Yeah.
So that's one thing that I never give up. So no matter how difficult it gets, I still manage to make the time to exercise, because then I know that I'm energized to deal with everything else that comes.
That's quite interesting that that's your priority. But I know that, Anton, you're also someone who's known for being fit, being healthy, and prioritizing self-care too.
Yeah, I think for me it's like, it's ups and downs. It all depends on the type of role that I'm playing at the time.
So your characters influence your approach to fitness?
Absolutely.
Tell us more.
Like, I mean, as you mentioned, I play SJ on Legacy. I think he was required to be more of a fit guy. So, those type of mornings before set, I'd always put in time in the gym. I'd eat well. And the role that I just finished now, I didn't have to prioritize the training all that much. I could let go a little bit physically, which was also nice. And but I would suggest for anyone to kind of, if you can put fitness as kind of as the cornerstone of your routine, it is a major help. You just feel, it becomes more about your mental focus, and you as a, you feel more stable and motivated in what you do for a living than how you look. Initially, I definitely did it for the look, but now there's a little bit more to it than just that. Yeah.
Very true, and I think quite refreshing that you all mentioned that it does provide you with a greater sense of focus, discipline, and also, I guess, transcends into various other aspects of your lives. We've spoken about health and mental fitness and well-being, but we also want to talk about your money fitness, which we'll get into in just a moment. And perhaps, Aurelia, we can start the base with you firstly. As many people might know you as an individual who has attained great success within the legal fraternity, an entrepreneur and a speaker, perhaps let's just take it back to where the goals, the drive, and the ambition might have actually come from for you to be able to tap into these multitude of opportunities available to you.
So I think I've always been, my greatest motivation has been my grandparents. I was raised by my grandparents, and the values and the principles they've instilled in me are still carrying me till this day. They are my greatest motivator. At any given time when it gets too rough, I know I can call them at any time. Every Saturday, 8 o'clock is prayer time. We go on a video call and I pray because they're based in Durban. Yes. So they still carry me, and all those principles and values have carried me to my next opportunities, and just also have made me this type of person who I exercise my options. So I provide options for myself, and I say, let me tap into this, let me tap into that, try it out. If it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't work. So I'm also I'm not risk, like I can take a risk.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, so it's one of those things, and that discipline and that learning and that always constantly wanting to learn and be educated has then assisted me in all the roles. So from being a 9-to-5 away, that was the dream before COVID, to now applying for jobs and you're just being rejected and you're like, hey,
and God, let's talk about that,
right?
What are you
doing now, you know?
Because for a lot of us, that's a challenge that we've had to face as a reality, ongoing retrenchments, friends and loved ones losing their jobs, and even personal experience where individuals might also be struggling in terms of employment. How have you managed that juggle in terms of looking at having multiple revenue streams and income streams and unlocking more money hacks, essentially?
Yeah. So I think the one thing that, and I'm grateful for, that I learned just before the pandemic was, it was by my favorite guy, T.D. Jakes, where he said that your AQ, your adaptability quotient, you know, so you can always read something and be like, oh, this is great, I really want to try this, until you're in the pool and you can't swim, and you actually have to practically be or adapt to the change, you know. So it was my job, me having a law degree was like, of course you'll have a job.
Of course.
Now all of a sudden companies are like, we're actually not looking at legal right now, it's sales and marketing. You're like, oh my gosh, okay. This degree doesn't matter at this point, you know. So it was those rejections and those things then to say, okay, what is required of me at this point? What do I do? Then the Learned Friend was born. I was like, okay, I've got this digital platform. I've got this legal knowledge that I would like everybody to have, and just make it conversational, because exactly, you need to know how to be a digital citizen. In the same way you know how to drive on the road, you need to know how to drive yourself and just be responsible. Right. In the digital space. So that's how I've married the two.
And I'm intrigued that you mentioned that, because a lot of us are quite familiar with digital platforms. All of us are on the gram. We're constantly posting our goals, the highlights that we have, our holidays, trips, and maybe even other ambitions. But Pumir, you've also taken a turn in terms of your adaptability. People might think of you as just a bean counter, but for those who also, as you've expressed your knowledge in terms of fitness, help us unpack how, as a young professional, you've explored that opportunity to find a new income stream, but also build up a great following in terms of goals, ambitions, and having a greater impact on society.
I think for me, it sort of unfolded that one thing that I always believe in, that sometimes you need a little bit of luck. And the manner in which I actually got to grow my following, I would definitely say it was that part of luck that hit at the right time, where everyone was home and digital was the main source of entertainment at the time. And I think when that happened, I essentially grabbed the opportunity with both hands. And I was like, okay, and then I was talking to friends and family, and I was like, you know what, I would actually love to monetize this whole situation. And my boyfriend was like, absolutely. And if there's anyone who can do it, it's actually you. And then I just, it was just a matter of being attentive to your audience online as well. So I started essentially giving out more of myself, more of the things that people actually also
But let's
like.
touch on that as well, because we also know that can be a bit of a difficult balance, right?
Yes.
You want to be seen as a professional because you're working for a corporate company, you want to climb the corporate ladder. So how did you find the balance between Pume, Miss Finance, and CA, who deals with large corporate companies in terms of major deals, but still being the fun Pume who will show you how to do 100 jump squats in under 15 minutes to attain your fitness goals? That balance and duality to make sure that you're true to yourself, but not compromising either of these personas or areas of your life.
Yeah. So actually, I actually love the space that I'm in at the moment, which is on the corporate side and on the digital side, because for me, it feels as if the two scenarios actually balance out to bring out the authentic side of who Pume is. So, and I think the one good thing is that on the digital side, I have a bit more control there. Whereas obviously on the corporate side, you abide by the corporate rules, and that's it. But I think if it was controlled on both ends, then I don't think I would have been able to do it.
Yeah.
The fact that I have some control on the digital side, it makes it easy to actually balance the two. And I think what I've actually done now is that every time there's something that I need to do on the digital world, I always have to link it back to the corporate side to say, wait, how is this going to affect the other side, which requires a lot of more control, a lot of more rules, and it's actually working out quite very well for me. So.
Yeah, I'm glad that you found that balance, and I'm sure you can also relate, Anton, as someone who is an artist who plays a critical role in terms of arts and culture, not only in South Africa but really globally. You come from a finance background, and I can imagine how that shift must have gone when you graduate, you have the qualification, and you tell your parents, I think I'm going to shift on to something else now.
It was the worst. It was not taken well, I will say. But yeah, I remember the day clearly. I walked out of a final exam in my honors in finance. I was also majoring in information systems and economics. And but then I had to just, I had this epiphany of like, is this what I'm going to be doing for the rest of my life? I'm passing, and I'm just about passing. I'm not that great at this. So am I going to be okay with this life of being a just okay finance person in working for a big corporate? And I was not happy with what I saw. So I decided one day, I was just like, I have to think hard to what excited me before. And what excited me always was the arts, like watching people up on stage. I used to see them as gods, I used to like admire someone that can get up on stage or get in front of a camera and act and tell a story and move me by telling that story. So yeah, I just one day walked out of that exam, told my parents I wanted to follow the arts and become an actor. Didn't go down well. I had to thereafter, still go and work day jobs, go and work within the qualification that I had to then accumulate enough money to pay for having to go to an acting school and pay for it myself.
Yes.
Which makes you also appreciate it so much more.
Exactly.
And
I like that balance as well, that you're not just working on your raw talent and innate ability to actually perform, but you actually wanted to master this passion project of yours so that you make sure that it can be a tangible career opportunity for you to explore. I think there's a lesson there that we need to share with our audience in terms of working on the passion, but investing in the passion too, to generate the kind of returns.
And it's an ongoing investment, like having lived in LA now for 6 years, like those artists work so hard. They're in acting class every single night. We're actually quite lucky out here to be cast in like a show and like not really always invest back in ourselves as artists. I sometimes don't see that happening all that much out here. But then again, you mentioned the business side of things, which I've kind of circled back to it a bit, because now I'm doing both. I'm an actor, but I'm also in business and have my own businesses.
Exactly.
So, and that my fear was, if I was to follow business, will I not sacrifice some of me being an artist? And this was a conversation I had with my acting coach, and she sat me down and she was like, look, just as acting is an art form, so is business. We are all creators. You have to, and the best businessmen are better creatives. You know, so I had to just keep that in mind and also know that I can do it all. I just don't have to be like a one-trick pony or whatever.
Yeah.
Let's expand on that. I think you've touched on something that a lot of us can relate to, and we do certainly see that with Generation Hustle, is that we want to have our fingers in many pies, and not just have a finger in the pie, but to grow the pie, create it, expand on it, redesign it, heck, flip it up on its side, and create something completely different. And that speaks to the innovative approaches that might have to be staggered in your life. And I'm keen to understand if that's something that you, Anton, perhaps within prioritizing the arts, then moving into business, and then finding a balance between the two, how you've had to incorporate that into your life as a young professional who wants to reach all these goals, but sometimes you're not reaching them all the time.
Yeah.
You know, I think the more nimble you are in any profession, the better. You know, the more you are adaptable, you know, because nothing lasts forever. Back in the 20s when it was black and white television, those who didn't change to the talkies, when people now spoke on color TV, they were quickly archaic. They were chucked out of the industry because they weren't willing to adapt.
Yeah.
You know, so you have to be willing. The willingness to adapt is always what's most important. So I'm always willing to change, you know. Even though my career was going well before I left for LA, you know, I was the face of a massive insurance company. I did a few internationals, but then I went there and I had to start all over again. So I had to start with, you know, I don't know if this is a question you're going to ask later.
Go ahead.
But I had to start with, you know, I had to chuck my pride, put it in the pocket, and be humble. And I was packing boxes for companies, small Amazon companies. I was serving tables in the beginning. Driving through snow to Nevada, Reno, throughout the states, jewelry, anything that I could do to survive in order to aid and support my desire to become an actor. So whatever hotel room I found myself in, I was still doing self-tapes. I was still submitting tapes. So it's a willingness to know that things sometimes, when you have it all, you can lose it all. And you only have it for a certain period of time, and that could go too. So you have to just always be ready and ready to start again.
Definitely. I think that's also something for us to expand on and to learn, that just in case you do want to embark on some of these ambitions, you need to be cognizant that sometimes you need to go back, put in the groundwork in order to expand and explore many of these opportunities. And that brings me to you, Aurelia, because you already, as an admitted attorney, advocate, let's get that correct, of the High Court, you're still studying at the moment. And that also, some people might sit back and think, well, like Anton says, you've been a hotshot, you've covered some qualifications, you've got your foot and networks on the ground, so why go back to actually further and continue to pursue your studies? And maybe that also speaks to the theme of self-development and constant self-investment. That is something that we also need to be mindful of as a money hack to pursue.
My goal is to be multidextrous. My goal is to have and be successful in every hat that I want to wear, right? So in being multidextrous, in upskilling yourself, whether in your professional or your personal, you are going to have to learn. And I'm a constant, I encourage learning, I encourage education. In any role that I go into, I go research. I research and I'm like, this is exactly what I want. And I think we've spoken about this before, where before, when I was a 9-to-5 and the dream was just to be a corporate 9-to-5er, I would be like, okay, my next role is to be senior manager or senior legal and compliance manager. Then I'll go and look at the checklist. Okay, cool. I need this, I need this. And so I still have that in me, even though now I've been forced into entrepreneurship, or like being an actually fully fledged entrepreneur. I still say I'm an aspiring entrepreneur. I was accepted.
Expiring?
Aspire.
Aspiring.
Sorry. I'm not even there yet. So I still aspire for so much more, and I still aspire to learn how to be this fully fledged entrepreneur. And my biggest thing, actually, my biggest setback and limiting belief I had is like, I'm scared of numbers. So I was like, I could never. Now I know, right? You know, so that's exactly it, because it's me not doing my MBA because I'm like, yo, the numbers there's no way. So now, masters, I'm doing, I started my master's in law and information technology in the first semester.
Call Anton. See, there's a common thread here.
Exactly. So then I was accepted into an academy for women entrepreneurs. And I was like, okay, well, let's park this one for a bit, because I'm already in the entrepreneurship, but I'm not confident in what I'm doing. I'm not confident with my numbers. I'm not confident. I mean, I can run a household because I've got an app, and to say, okay, my pocket's here, I'm saving. I save every month for my aunties so that by the time it's December and they want their bonus, I'm not like, struggling, you know. So
okay.
I keep it every single month. I put into that pocket, right, to save money for them so that I'm not actually at a disadvantage and
Yeah.
want to go to Cape Town for New Year's, you know. You know. So it's one of those things. So I've always been a planner. I've always had that ability, and I still have that ability in anything that I get myself involved in. So I keep
Yeah.
learning. So it will never stop for me. So after masters, maybe I'll do a PhD. I don't know.
Look at you. Levels on levels on levels on levels. Well, if you've just joined us, welcome to our Nedbank Young Professionals Money Hacks for Generation Hustle. This is a conversation where we're speaking to young professionals to help us fully understand a few lessons in their journey, how it is that they continue to drive towards their personal and professional ambitions, and most importantly, how they navigate through some of those challenges, but just continue to smash some of the goals and ambitions that they work towards. It's been a difficult one for many young professionals, whether you work within the corporate structure or perhaps have also ventured into entrepreneurship, or someone who might be a lot more liberal and participating in new innovative industries as well. And this is where we have a conversation to share some money hacks with you, life lessons, how it is that we are learning from our guests who've joined me here today that everybody certainly can be multidextrous, tapping into many opportunities that exist, but understand that there's a lot of hard work and slog that does need to come with it. At times, you might be able to pursue various opportunities at the same time, or balancing your personal ambitions, which might come from your purpose that you hope to fulfill, versus that you might be academically qualified for. But we want you to share your questions with us. So if you do have any questions on this particular platform, do feel free to share them with us. And of course, we're well aware that we'll get to the money questions in a moment. But ask our guests in terms of some of their personal experiences and, of course, suggestions that they might recommend. Money hacks and, of course, hacks to make sure that all of us as members of Generation Hustle can really continue to meet our goals and ambitions. And there's an interesting theme that I'm seeing coming along here in terms of managing both the professional, the personal goals, being multidextrous and putting your hands into multiple opportunities that might exist, and just the consistent self-investment in your talent as well as in the academic studies or the various fields that one would like to explore. And for me, collaboration is something as well that has come to the table quite clearly, as there's similar themes in terms of what everyone has studied. I too did an accounting degree, sidestepped it because I didn't want to sit in your seat as the CA, but rather interacting with people like yourself. And I'm keen to understand how it is that as young professionals, primarily in the corporate space, because that's your 9 to 5, how should we manage collaboration, especially when, as Aurelia mentioned, everyone's targeting a similar role in order to make sure that they thrive in their corporate careers, but at the same time, success is never attained in an individualistic society. So balancing collaboration in corporate and maybe in other spaces of your life, how have you managed that?
I think it's just being open-minded all the time, and each moment you actually have a conversation with someone, you are present, and just and because of my profession, I actually meet quite a lot of people. I get to converse with a lot of people who are coming from a different background than I do in most of the cases. So, and I'm always the type of person who keeps in mind in terms of when meeting new people, especially, just to what can I get out of the conversation, you know, and I think the key thing is being present, because that's where you actually pick up the opportunities. And it's certainly also a way of actually getting new business as well out of your existing clients, which is actually important on the corporate side in investment banking as well.
Yeah.
Because you can say, let's catch up. And when you catch up with someone, that's where they divulge what's happening in the business. And then already, because you already have that mind of, you know, identifying opportunities, they mention something and it clicks. Oh, by the way, I can actually help you with this, you know. So
and have you found yourself on the opposite end of the table? Because let's be honest, when you're working in corporate, you're young, you have 6 years plus of experience, but of course you're interacting with people of different ages, different backgrounds, and that also brings about differences perhaps that also need to be overcome, right? So you need to be a willing participant in that conversation. Any experiences that you can share as to how you might have navigated that kind of bumpy roadmap?
So the thing is, with me, I'm flexible. I'm always flexible, and so like literally, if someone comes to me and well, I'm on the receiving end and they identify something that they would like me to help them with,
Yeah.
I'm always open.
Yeah.
But I think, and the most important thing is to be able to actually give a pass on certain things where you, especially where you know that actually I'm not experienced enough to help you with this. Let me rather refer you to someone else.
Yeah.
And I think that's where word of mouth actually also plays a very good role. The more you give out of yourself and people actually experience what you do and how you help them, the more they will actually give out your name to whoever that they
Yes. The power of networking,
Yeah.
that translating to your
Yeah.
net worth, and of course building up on collaborative efforts there. Pumi, I think you've touched on something that I really want us to build up on and speaks to some of the questions as well that have come through from many of our guests who are joining us online. A reminder to keep those questions coming through where we want to hear from you about perhaps inspirational stories, questions you might have for my guests, and maybe further money hacks that we can also help you out with. But it would be remiss of us if we ignore the elephant in the room, which is a challenge that many of our viewers have actually been struggling with. A lot of people desperately looking for jobs. And we've touched on the fact that many of you are dabbling into entrepreneurship. You've worked for yourselves before, worked for other people and other institutions, and even working, co-creatively with other peers within the industry. But there are a lot of young South Africans who might be finding themselves on the opposite end of the scale, where they are just at their wits' end, and maybe pursuing their passion projects is not necessarily something that they're able to do. Any words of encouragement or perhaps motivation as to how to manage that? Anton, let me throw that at you first. Why? Because I think you might be able to also share, some perspective and reflect on your working experience both in South Africa and, of course, like you mentioned, Los Angeles, where different environments, but of course still similar challenges in terms of unemployment.
Yeah, I think what has always been a saving grace for me when I'm at the bottom and I'm kind of struggling for work in the entertainment game and I don't have any side hustle going on is, again, just touching on what Pumi said was relationships. Your relationships are the most expensive, your most valuable commodity. Keep showing up, like even when you don't feel like going to that party or to that event, just show up and put your pride in your pocket and just, if you are not in a good space, ask. Ask someone or pay attention, be present, find out what they offer and see how you could provide them with a solution. Because people are looking for solutions.
Yeah.
So if you are solution driven, someone at some point in a conversation will say what they're struggling with.
Yeah.
And that's where you come in and you're like, listen, I can help you with this. If you are in the personal or in the fitness space, you can be like, hey, have you been training? This could be a professional CEO or like someone in the corporate space who doesn't have time to get to a gym, and you can this is just an example. You just pitch it to them. Listen, how about I come to your house 3 times a week and you pay me?
Exactly.
You have to get creative with it. There's always ways around.
I like that. And as you said, it's also about speaking to people and, finding ways of being creative. Pume touched on the fact that she thought, okay, social media, I like this, let's monetize it. Yeah. And your partner came on board and said, yes, you can. And I would assume, Aurelia, there's other opportunities as well that you've explored, despite maybe some of the challenges you might have experienced. But words of encouragement, again, just focused on those who might be struggling and maybe even isolating because of the fear of actually saying, hold on, guys, I'm young, I'm in my 20s, I've got all the academic qualifications, I'm ambitious, but I'm still struggling.
Yeah. So I think, and I'll touch on what Anton said earlier, don't be like, what's the English word?
Say it in Zulu, girl. It will have a greater impact.
Is it Zulu or I saw it? It's unga. Don't nyanza things. Is that the? Do you get what I'm saying? So that starting over or starting afresh.
Yes.
Speaks to adaptability, speaks to don't look down at something.
Yes.
Don't be afraid of I don't have that.
Or what people will say syndrome. Yeah.
I don't have that and that helps you in then being able to go down to the foundation, go down to the level and be like, okay, cool. If I need to do this and this is what I need by this certain time, then you can start over at any given time. And also in just upskilling yourself, you know. And I think even for me, when COVID, I lost my job, my corporate job at the onset of COVID. And I was like, well, I'm not going to stop. I don't have the money to study. There's these platforms where you can do a course for free, you know.
Yes.
So it's all of those things that while you are sitting and don't sit and unpack there. Yes, it's a rough time for everybody, but to sit and unpack and stay in that zone is only going to also delay you in actually getting up and moving, getting up and you know, dusting yourself off. It's like, okay, I'm going to show up, and I'm going to show up in this energy, because again, for me, what you said, Pume, about being present, is that in any room that you show up in, just be authentic self, be that energy, you know, because you don't know who's going to pick that person. Whatever hat you're wearing, me in a boardroom, I walk in with all my hats. You know,
Right.
because you don't know what the next person's going to pick up from you, or what conversation you're going to have, and then what that is going to lead to. So it's opening yourself up to so much more.
Yeah.
You know,
and understanding, as you say, as to how it can be a two-way street, right?
Absolutely.
Being willing to learn, but also being willing to offer help and assistance where you certainly can.
Yeah.
And I think it's important that we do highlight that despite the challenging times that we're in as South Africans, there's always opportunities for us to build up on, in terms of making sure that there's more employment opportunities for many more South Africans through entrepreneurship, through side hustles, through corporate as we know it, but many opportunities for one to expand on and continue to grow. Well, I want us to shift gears for a moment
And get to the exciting part, right, of this conversation. There's a beautiful green background behind us. We know what that symbolizes.
Yeah.
Money. And this is all about money hacks. And many of the youth might think, well, Pume, I want to go on holiday like you. I want to head off to LA like Anton. I want to be like Aurelia as well and live my best life with friends and family. But how do I do that when it just seems like money is short everywhere? And it's quite tight. So maybe I'll throw this one at you, Pume. The money, the numbers girl and the finance girl. If you can maybe share some of your money hacks that you've had to navigate throughout the last few years. We know that you're big on investing, and we've seen that as well on social media. But help us share a few of your money hacks and how you might manage this coming December. Will you have January blues next year?
Certainly not. But I think, you know, I think if there's one thing that a lot of people actually, which is something that is quite simple, but it can actually bring a lot of return. I always, even my closest friends, I always tell them, guys, it's your money, negotiate your way out of everything that you need to pay for.
Yeah.
Tell us how.
So, and a simple example, a friend of mine actually who was leasing out an apartment and it was coming up for renewal. And then he came to me and he said they are charging him 10%, I think. And I'm like, on what basis?
Okay, but hold on. That's already at a big level. Some of us are still young professionals who are trying to get that property. Never mind, lease it out, right?
As in your home.
Oh, leasing out their home. Okay.
Yes, as in they're renting out a home and it was coming up for renewal. And it was like there's a standard 10% increase in his lease agreement, which is very common, by the way. And then I'm like, okay, but on what basis? Why did you agree to the 10%? And he was like, I don't know, because it's the standard. I'm like, no, this is where you need to actually ask questions and ask them, go back to them and ask on what grounds did you get me the 10%?
Yeah.
You know, you need to, every single thing that you're paying for, you need to understand.
Yeah.
That's before we even get to the income. And I think that's quite important. Aurelia, you're also nodding your head there because clearly she obviously deals with contracts and law. So the devil's in the details here. So we need to also make sure that we're reading certain terms, conditions, contracts, even employment contracts, I'm assuming, or whether you're working on as an entrepreneur or certain projects. Contracts, paperwork also add up in terms of what we need to know.
Yeah, so just expanding on what she said is the one thing that I was big on is reading your terms and conditions, even like the small ones in my banking app.
Aurelia, it's not fun.
You have to.
It's not fun, right?
have to.
But you
Having
have
a good
to.
team.
No. Yes, no, but you have to, because I'll tell you now. There's a friend that had a personal loan, right? So obviously you're paying it off, and now they've lost their job. I was like, go back to your contract. What does it say? She's like, yeah, that's also this extra 50 Rand that I was paying. I was like, that's actually your security.
Yeah.
Now, because you've been retrenched, speak to your banker and then tell them, I actually cannot afford to pay back this loan. And she got 12 months where she wasn't paying back.
So it was like a credit life insurance cover to cover the loan that she took out.
And that's normally the case with
so if you've been
personal
so if you've been retrenched, you can submit that, and you probably wouldn't have to pay for a year or 6 months, you know.
Yeah.
And even with the car thing, I think with my dad, I said, well, why are you asking for a payment holiday when you've actually got insurance for this? So they can pay for 6 months until you're okay, and then it's those details. That signature means a lot. You know, it means even negotiating the 10%, because you need to know, what am I signing, and how is it actually going to elevate me or grow me, or even just be money-wise, you know?
Okay, I'm excited, and I hope many of you are taking notes, because we're hearing the facts here. Read the terms and conditions first and foremost, and if you don't want to read them yourself, as Anton said, and Aurelia, find a team for Aurelia, right?
Yeah.
Get the right team, and that also speaks to something. Provide the service at a fee.
Yes.
Making sure you have the right team and trusting them to read terms and conditions of your contract. And of course, as was also mentioned, making sure not that you negotiate. And maybe we can also talk about negotiating.
The big purchases.
Yeah.
And I think
even our salaries too, though, right?
Negotiate.
Anton's agreeing there.
100%.
yes,
Tell us about that.
100%.
It's salaries for sure, but it's also just the little financial know-hows and knowledge that you gain in the industry as you go, especially as a freelancer. Like a lot of people, and it took me 2 years as a finance graduate to realize, and this is, might sound dumb for saying this, but that, you know, as a freelancer, things that are in the production of your income are tax deductible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So keep track of every small thing, like every business meeting that you pay for, every facial that you go for, like your gym membership, your personal trainer, your protein supplements, whatever it is that you use that you feel in the production of your income, that you can substantiate at the end of the year and say, hey, SARS, I want my money back.
Precisely.
All of these things. Because it's so easy for us to, because we are not only creatures of habit, but of comfort too. So we don't feel like doing those tax things or keeping our slips or all of that. But if you are a detailed-orientated person, that money can be used towards investing in your second, third, fourth stream of income.
Yeah. And that's important, Anton, because I think a lot of us do think that when you run your passion projects, you can just do it off the fly. Someone gives you an odd figure and a number and like, okay, well, 10,000 or 10 Rand might be your value and you're happy with that. But you really need to make sure that you actually account for these appropriately. And you emphasize team. I want to go back to that for a moment, because sometimes, again, we like to work in isolation. But how did you find the right team? How did you get people on board? And I guess a lot of it did start with the conversation, which then led to these money hacks that you have.
Yeah, for me, it's built off of a feeling that I sometimes get just by sitting down with someone. I know that might not be the most practical way to go about things like that, because you have to essentially trust this person with your books, with your life, with your career, is what I do with my agents, with my finance people, with my tax accountant. You know, I have to trust them with like not divulging information, privy things that I want secret, or just that I want to know. So I've gotten very lucky. I've had to, you know, I've had to make some mistakes along the way. Like I've
share them, because I think we can all relate. Hey, having too much credit card debt.
Yeah, 100%. Like, I mean, I not only have bank accounts like in South Africa, but I have bank accounts in the States. So on a daily basis, I have to be checking those accounts to see if there's no fraudulent activity, or I have to talk to my tax accountant in the US to make sure that I'm all aboard with things and I don't get kicked out of the States. I'm not following protocol over there. And I've had to fire agents and managers, and I've had to let go of certain tax accountants because I felt that they weren't doing my books in a very ethical way, or charging me way too much, more than they should. So I think it's all just like a learn as you go type of process. With time, you do get better with everything you do if you keep consistent with it. So I'd like to think that I'd like to think that the worst is behind me and I have a good team.
Of course.
So.
Of course. Hence you're here. Money hacks. Because that's exactly what we want to learn. Pume, I'm keen to hear if you've had any financial faux pas, some financial mistakes that you might have made in the past that we can learn from.
It's definitely overspending, especially on clothing items. They are not need.
You're forgiven.
Yeah, she's forgiven. It's okay. But there's a lesson for us to learn in that, right? As you said, prioritizing, going back to the planning.
Yes, and what I always tell people is that bank statements are actually for free. So check your bank statement every month, and you actually see where and how you are spending your money. And the moment you actually have a grasp on that, then you can see, Uguti,
Something's
I
off,
shouldn't
yeah.
be spending this much money on clothing and clothes that I do not even wear sometimes.
Yeah.
And then you can actually do something about it. And I think it's crucial now because it's the festive season, and checking your bank statement regularly helps because that's where those dodgy, unauthorized debit orders actually peak. You know, so when you are that person who actually checks their bank statement regularly, if something is amiss, you can pick it up quite instantly. And then you can just work on that.
I fell into the trap earlier this year because I
Really?
wasn't checking my bank statement for 3 months.
Yep.
And was there not Uber Eats, Uber
Oh,
from a card that I don't even have linked to
wow.
to those apps?
Oh
So
boy.
I had to sit, after that I had to go and go through every transaction that wasn't me and then approach the bank,
Yeah.
and they fortunately paid it back.
Yeah.
Actually wasn't it?
That's quite important because you literally are seeing your money differently, going through the
Side note.
process. Like, hold on, that does need to change up.
Yeah.
Perfect. Negotiation, read the terms and conditions, be very clear about your financial standing, call yourself out when it comes to financial failures that you might be embarking on, but also be forgiving because we all have flaws, right?
Yes.
But it's just a matter of fixing them, as you've both highlighted, getting the right team, which definitely speaks to getting some kind of help. Someone who will help you with the legal side, financial side, and any other aspects that also might come about. I do want to shift this slightly because there is a question that's also come through on the line, and we want to encourage you to share your questions with us. We've got about 12 minutes left of the conversation, so if you are looking for any money hacks to make it right through 2022 and beyond, send your questions in now, and our guests will be able to answer them. But each of you do have entrepreneurial interest, right?
Yes.
And there's an interesting question that's come through here from one of our guests who has asked, how do you start with no capital? Usually banks seek a proof of income before they give you funding. So what other platforms can one try to get funding, if there are platforms that you're familiar with, or if there might be some tips and tools of the trade that many of you might have implemented when you started your businesses? Aurelia?
First, it was my own personal pocket.
Boom. Let's start with that. That's important because it tells us that you save.
Yes, I did. And I think earlier we spoke about, so I'm also quite pedantic with my app and my credit score. So the minute that I am below what I'm supposed to be, I'm just like, okay, what can we do about this? You know, so even with the team, and especially with young professionals, you are not in a position where you can have a legal team, you can have a finance team, but with the professional banking and what it provides for you, I called and I was like, I'm in financial crisis. What can we do with what both of us can see what's going on with my account, you know? And you have that honest conversation because, again, I'm not a numbers person, and someone who better knows and can get me to the goal or the way I want to be financially stable is able to then say, okay, you've got an investment here, you've got this here, this is what we can do, this is what you can do. And then you have that conversation. You're like, okay, how do I assist me with clearing my debt? And you then have that journey as well where you're not obviously killing yourself in the process, but you're also just creating a better future for yourself. So in going back into entrepreneurship, using your networks, using your family, you know, your family, your friends, because sometimes the sponsorship or the assistance is not necessarily monetary. Sometimes it's just connecting you to the right people. To say also, just have someone to bounce off. I don't believe that I am where I want to be as an entrepreneur. So I have someone to say, listen, this is what has come up. Please, can you assist me here? Because I'm still learning. I'm still in that journey myself. But it's also just to have the confidence to ask people, it's just asking, what's the worst that could happen?
Right?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I'm glad that you mentioned the app, because a lot of the time some of us take that for granted. We're always on the gram. We're always making sure that the shot is shot the right way. But we also need to make sure that we use our apps.
Yes.
Nedbank in particular for young professionals has Money Tracker, which can show you where you're spending. So spending too much on the clothes right there, like Pume mentioned, you will see that on the chart. When you're looking for your credit score, as Aurelia mentioned, it will tell you if your numbers are lower or higher. And that's also quite empowering, because I like the fact that we're not being ashamed about our spending habits, given that there are differences in the lifestyles that we live with our peers, with our friends, and with our family. And that also speaks to having a very clear and honest conversation with yourself. But I can imagine that's not always easy. Anton, have there been, some struggles in terms of being open and honest about your financial position with yourself and your team, and then also finding, more resourceful ways maybe to manage any kind of financial discrepancies that came about?
I don't quite understand the question.
Oh, well, sorry, I'm trying, but you're right, I'm loaded. But essentially, if ever you found yourself in a difficult financial position that you had to be honest about. Yes.
Bail me out. Yeah.
But that's not easy, right?
It's
And
hard.
that's the
It's
point,
such
because
a-
it feels like, Anton, you should know how to do this. You've got a finance degree, Anton.
You feel that you sound like my mom. You feel so small and helpless and hopeless in those situations. Like I said, when I moved to the States, the exchange rate was 17 Rand to 1. You know what I mean? And
Sheesh.
it wasn't long before...
You couldn't even buy a Big Mac.
Exactly. Like, I went there at a decent place, but, as money does, it goes away after a certain time, and then you have to sometimes call back home and be like, what can you guys help me with? Ask for help. Don't be afraid or too prideful to ask for help. Like, I say that to my friends too. Like, because what I've noticed is, like, I've spoken to friends and they were like, 2 months ago I had absolutely nothing. It was one of the hardest months for me. And like, why didn't you ask?
Yeah.
Why didn't you ask me to borrow you something? I trust you. You'll give it back. I've had to borrow from people before, and then I would just make sure, again, like, your name is what's most important.
Yeah.
If you don't pay back, it would quickly become known that you are the guy that
does
not pay your
Yeah,
debts. So you have to, honor your debts and pay those off first.
Yeah.
But ask for help.
And
Again, pride in your pocket, and it is how it is. And also, just circling back to the question about starting a business and asking
Sure,
for
go
help
ahead.
is, I've been in that boat many times before, where because I'm so ambitious, I think too big. And there's no such thing as thinking too big, but you want to start off too big. You have to break it down into, let's say your goal is to own a truck.
practical
Right.
steps.
Yeah. The truck is very expensive, your first truck in logistics. So I would say put together some form of a one-page business plan, reach out to people, and rent a bucky for the first month or whatever, and
makes
start
sense.
moving rubble, and from there you build your books, and eventually you will have that truck. It's not going to happen today, but don't overwhelm yourself by the end, by your final goal.
Yeah.
So just as a side.
I like that. I think quite refreshing as well. Break it down and start small to make sure that you actually have practical steps to actually follow up on.
Yeah.
I want to keep with the money lessons and the money hacks, and of course building up on entrepreneurship. And we tend to forget that money is an emotional asset and resource that we use. Trying to be an entrepreneur as well, and juggling multiple side hustles, and even the year-end fatigue that we spoke about earlier, can sometimes get us down, depressed, and just not having the necessary motivation to get on by. And when you open up Instagram, when you look at other young professionals on LinkedIn and other profiles, or even where you work, and seeing them reach their goals can become intimidating, scary, and sometimes off-putting. How, Pume, have you managed to maintain a positive mindset? And maybe it might not even speak to money or about money, but we know that how you manage your mindset, your thinking, mental health and wealth, and mental wellness and well-being does have an influence on all the other aspects of your life.
So for me, I'm always true to myself, and everything that I see on social media, I definitely do not take it at face value. I don't think there's an occasion where I see something and I say, oh, I have to get this, I have to get this, I have to get this.
That tells us you have a good sense of self, though, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So just be authentic and stick to who you are as a person. And in most cases, the things that you see on social media are not even nice. And you know that it's not nice.
Or true.
Yeah, or true.
That
And
too.
but
Yeah.
you want to own it because a certain person owns it.
Yeah.
But it's not even your style or whatever the case may be. So just be true and always reflect the authentic side of yourself. And it's easier not to get strayed by everything that you come across.
Yeah.
It's also easier to sort of whatever people may have to say about you as well. It's easy to brush it aside when you
Yeah.
actually know who you are.
Yeah, and that knowing who you are is the basis of everything, really. How you show up for yourself professionally, personally, and of course making sure you reach your goals. And I think quite important that we're hearing this from people who have large social media followings, that be true to yourself and be sure to actually always work from a place of authenticity. Aurelia, I also want to throw the question to you as someone who's a mom as well, budding, young, dynamic family. That can also come with its own pressures, where when you wear these multiple hats, you also need to ensure that not only does Aurelia show up for herself, but that you manage these different areas of your life as well. How do you cope, I guess, with the balance?
So there's no balance. The one thing that one of my mentors and it has said, and it stuck with me, was that we must stop trying to strike a balance. Rather, you'll thrive to have harmony with everything that you want, with everything. I want to be a great mom. I want to be there when my kids need me to go watch ballet. My daughter's got ballet. She's 3. I don't know what I'm going to be watching, but I'm going to be there because it means something for her. So it means something. She's at the stage where she recognizes people. She knows what's going on. She can tell you a story of what happened at school, you know. So it's those things, and wanting to flourish and be successful in all those multiple hats, right? And just also going to what Puma is saying, just being authentic, also accepting me. If it's not working, I can't do it. You know, if I have support at home, I've made sure that I have support. I have the flexibility in now being, working for myself, and also to be able to then just shut down. I've got 2 phones now because at 8 o'clock I have to shut down, and then I have the one with 10 people because my family needs me if there's an emergency.
Okay.
But it's me implementing those sort of things to always have time for myself at some point, to be one with myself, and also just to be the mother that I want to be, and also to be the entrepreneur that I want to be the student that I want to be. So it's just finding harmony with all those things. And to what you were saying about social media, you define what success is for yourself. It's not Pume's definition. It's not Anton's definition. It's what a meaningful and successful life is to Aurelia. So, yeah.
Both for your professional and personal goals.
Absolutely.
I love that. Anton, you're the jet setter. People see you on TV. We assume that we know you because we know SJ.
Yes.
And that can also speak to how you have to strike a sense of harmony, never mind balance, between who you are and what you're known for, and I guess the perception of being this gent who has it all. And how do you, I guess, find a sense of harmony between the entrepreneur, the son, the actress, and the many other things that you are?
Yeah, again, striving for that authenticity is important, and also we need to be conscious of our audiences. We have a responsibility as being someone in the public eye, and they need to know that what they see on social media is maybe the best part of our day, but they don't see the way we wake up in the morning.
I call it highlights of my life.
You know what I mean?
Literally, highlights.
Because we have crappy moments of the day where we feel like throwing in the towel and giving up. We all have that, but what is the difference between those who are perceived successful and those who are not is that the successful keep going. They just keep showing up, and at some point the universe will open up and show you Vula the gate. It will happen if you keep knocking down that door. Like Denzel Washington says, if you hang around the barbershop long enough, you're bound to get a cut.
Exactly.
And then also what's important for me, or being in the public eye, is boundaries, which I struggled with because I come from a large family, so I always was very accessible. I'm just like, if you want to talk to me, I'm here. If you want to meet with me, who am I not to show up?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So self-respect and boundaries, like you said, switch off your phone at 8. Not everyone needs to get hold of you.
Exactly.
Not everyone, not everyone, you don't have to go to every single party. If you can't make it, you can't make it. And you don't have to justify your not being able to make it.
Yeah.
You know, we always want to justify and like over-explain why we did what we did or why we weren't there.
Yeah.
Because you are now in the public eye, people expect you to be there because it will be so nice if you showed up.
Right?
But is it nice for you?
Yeah.
You know, if it doesn't feel good, don't show up, don't go. Stay at
Exactly.
home. Also take care of your spirit, your mind, your body, and because that's important. You know, put yourself first. You know, like when you are in a flight, you talk about me doing flights. What the first thing to do before you help the person next to you when that oxygen tank drops is put it on yourself, and then you can help the person better next to you.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? So take care of yourself first then. So that's what I think I do, or I try to do.
Yeah.
I'm trying.
Sheesh. You guys have dropped a number of nuggets here today, golden nuggets that I think we can all relate to and will continue to learn from. I guess we built up the conversation really picking up on self-identity, right? Being true to who you are, knowing what you're about, and having the opportunity to tap into the multitudes of your personality and the aspects that you'd like to focus on. We also did discuss the fact that once you are aware of what it is that you want to do in your life, be willing and prepared to put in the hard work.
Yeah.
Not all of it is going to be pretty, not all of it is going to be fun or nice, but if it is an ambition that you have professionally or personally, you can put in the necessary work to get by. Build up on your networks. Make sure that you collaborate where you can. Be fully present in the rooms that you occupy and be willing to share your story and communicate. Whether you're unemployed, whether you're a struggling entrepreneur, whether you're thriving at every aspect of your life, be sure to open up the doors and communicate about what it is your future goals and ambitions are, or even how you are able to assist other individuals. Of course, once you sort yourself and your ambitions out, that just makes it so much easier for you to manage your money hacks. And by getting together in terms of using the tools of technology like apps to actually follow through with what you're spending on, how you're spending, how much you're earning, getting the right team of individuals, advisors, and of course leaders to assist you in understanding the technicalities of your work. That's just the starting base to make sure that you thrive in reaching both your professional and your personal goals. Well, I've had fun here today. I hope you guys have too. I've learned a lot as well. And I think most importantly, we all have a solid foundation to start off the year 2022 on. Definitely making sure that we've shared a few money hacks for Generation Hustle. And whilst the hustle continues, the hard slog will continue. But of course, we make sure that the successes will be shared, will be highlighted, and become a focal point of our lives as we share those successes as well with others to also reach their goals. It's been a fun time, and I'd like to thank my panelists for joining us, Pume, Anton, and Aurelia. Thank you so much. Onwards and upwards. More bank in your account, and most importantly, also continue to reach your goals. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll see you next time on the next Nedbank Young Professionals Money Hacks for Generation Hustle.
This one's for the young professionals who keep hustling, no matter what life throws at them. The ones who keep the midnight oil burning until the early morning. The ones who understand that ambition alone isn't enough, but that grit is what separates the icons from the one-hit wonders. This one's for you, who graduated first in your family and then made sure you weren't the last. It's for the business owners who started with nothing but belief and that 4 a.m. alarm. This one's from the bank that doesn't just take your money, but takes your money seriously. The bank that gets you, all of you, the this by day and that by night you. So hustle on with us in your corner. Go ahead and dream big. Play in the big leagues and be a big fish in an even bigger pond. This one's for you, the one who understands that a good money hack goes a long way. This one's for Generation Hustle. #Nedbank Young Pro.